And a fine and wonderful good morning to all of you. I'm happy to see you. I hope you're as happy to see me. But I have to tell you, I have the best of the bargain. Literally. I'm reminded a bit when I visit a school in Washington, particularly, that's where I do most of mine. There is a special school there that I would like to tell you just a little bit, because I heard someone mentioning education. And education is something that is close and dear to my heart. When I was 13 years old, I went to my father and I said, "Father, tomorrow there's going to be a schoolmaster in the area and I want to go to school." And he said, "No, you don't need an education to be a farmer." But I went to my mother and said, "Father wouldn't let me go." Somehow, some way, I don't know how she did it, but I got to go to school the next morning. You see, my wonderful mother, my second mother, because my birth mother died when I was younger. But I had a new one, a new mother who came into my life. And she understood how much I wanted an education, because it opened the doors to things. And I knew that. And this school that I have the privilege of being connected with, I love to go out there every once in a while and as often as I can. But with my duties, I don't have that much time. But those children in that school are called all manner of names because they're not like the normal kids. They have their problems. But it's really a wonderful opportunity for me to go out there and help them, because those children are deaf. They don't know how to talk. They've never been taught. They learn a bit of sign language, and that's what we try to teach them, to communicate. Because that communication is the key, really, to all of us in getting along with one another. You would never know who your neighbor was unless you talk to them or communicate with them. That's these young people. That's education. Education gives them that opportunity. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States give you and me that opportunity in life to be educated. The opportunity is there. And when I visit another school there, I tell them, I can stand here as the 16th President of the United States, having been born in Kentucky in a log cabin with a dirt floor. And now I reside in the highest office in the land, the White House, the presidency. You see, you all have the same opportunity that I had, given to us by our forefathers. That's that opportunity to reach out and educate and learn, to do something better in life than maybe you would have if you didn't have that education. But when I talk about education, I also think back emancipation of the Negro, the slaves. Over 4 million of them. 4 million in the South alone. There are about 325,000 slaves in the border states. Those are the ones that I have a problem with. What to do with them, because the Constitution forbids me from interfering in those slaves which are in the Union. I cannot touch them. I cannot free them. as much as I would want to. There has never been a day that I have not hated slavery. I can remember back as a 7-year-old boy, Nob Hill, Kentucky, back on that farm, there on the creek, Nob Creek. Lots of good memories in that little place. But up on the flatland, that's where a farmer that I knew, and he owned a family of slaves. It's amazing. The reason I bring this story, it reminds me of a time there. I had not just very recently had a young girl ask me, "Mr. Lincoln, what does freedom mean to you?" Boy, that really set me in a moment. What do you tell a young girl about 10 years old? What freedom means to you? And I said, well, let me stop and think for just a second. But I think I'd have to go back to when I lived on Nob Creek. I was 7 years old. Up on top of the flatland up there on that ridge, there was a farm there, and that owner of the farm owned a family of slaves. Now, one of those children was about my age, 7, and I think back, he ate better than I did. They had more than I did. He had better clothes than I had, because I can remember at 6 years old, when I went to school, I was wearing a dress. Yes, I was. Well, it wasn't really a dress, it was just a shirt. But it came to my knees because my mother made it so long because I was growing so fast. And I had to grow into it. But that young boy up there, that slave boy, he had all these things that I had. But there's one thing that I had that he couldn't get. And that's freedom. I could go where I wanted to. I could go down to the mill without anybody with me, with no paper on my possession, which if I were stopped by a white person, it didn't matter. I don't need a paper. That boy, that slave boy, has to have that document in his hand. And if he doesn't, he's going to be punished for it. That's wrong. That's not freedom. And I hope that I could explain to that little girl what freedom really meant to me. I have worked side by side with slaves for long periods of time. And I enjoy their company. And I like it because they communicate with me and I with them. What a great thing. How great it is to be in that position. And all through my growing years and then into Illinois, where I lived the rest of my days before coming here to Washington. It's amazing, the journey that I've had from that little log cabin in Kentucky and now the presidency. Emancipation has been in the back of my mind ever since the presidency, even before, all the way back to the debates that I had with our good senator from Illinois, Mr. Douglas. Douglas didn't care anything about slavery. I did. Even then. The 7 debates that I had were about nothing but slavery issues. That's all. That's enough. And I refused to change my opinion that slavery was wrong morally, and I felt that it was wrong legally. Why legally? The question has been asked of me many times, why do you say legally? And I said, look at the Declaration of Independence, which says all men are created equal and all are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Slaves don't have that. The Declaration of Independence says it's there. It doesn't say anything about who. It says all are entitled. That, as a young man of 16, puzzled me. And legally, the Constitution guarantees the rights, that Bill of Rights, that Declaration of Independence. If it guarantees them all, doesn't specify who, it says all men, why don't they have their freedom? Those are the things I have to look at. Those are the things that are in my mind as I become a legislator in Illinois. Then into the House of Representatives for 2 years. We're in a war with Mexico. Over what? That was a big question for me. But it has to do part of it with slavery issues. And states in the South, knowing that someday that territory that they would get would become states. They're in the South. It would give them more power. Those are issues that I think about when I was writing that Emancipation Proclamation. Being there at the old soldiers' home out in the countryside there in Washington, and sitting there on the porch in the warm summer in July of 1861, and sitting there day after day, every few minutes, every little bit of time that I could, thinking of what I wanted to put in that Emancipation Proclamation. Was not easy. The biggest problem that I have is with the people in the North. My constituents, the voters, the people. That's one of the greatest things. I think if I go back and look, one of the greatest challenges that I have as president is to keep that communication between the people of the North as well as the South, but particularly the North, because I have to have them trust me. I made a speech in 1832, the very first speech I ever made politically, running for the seat in the Illinois State Legislature. And in that speech, I said, I have no greater ambition in life than to be esteemed by my fellow man, but to be worthy of that esteem. Trust, it isn't given to you. Integrity, it isn't given to you. You have to go through all of that. I have to have that trust. I have to have that. That's why the people of this country are so important to me. When someone comes into my office, they're welcome. I don't care who they are. They may come into my office with a sour look on their face. They may not like me. They may not understand me. I don't know when they walk in who they are. But if they walk in there and they have a bad look on their face, by the time I'm through with them, they walk out that door with a smile on their face. And now I have one more friend, one less enemy. That's communication, but that's education. That Emancipation Proclamation, so dear to me, but it had to be done at the right time. I went to my cabinet finally, and I told them that I have a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation ready. I'm not here to ask your advice, I told the cabinet. I am here to tell you I am going to do it. But I want you to have the opportunity to tell me if there's anything that you would like to have added to it or take away from it. What are your opinions? What do you want? Write them down. Give them to me. But I will do it. Mr. Seward, very quickly, as everyone else had their say, but Mr. Seward very quickly said, wait a minute. You need to take a little time. Think about it. You need a victory. We haven't had a victory in this war. We need one in order to keep the people in the North happy. They're afraid that if I issue that proclamation, and they know it has been talked about, people have asked me time and time again, groups have come in and said, issue an Emancipation Proclamation. Free all of the slaves.